Hello everybody and welcome back to the series How I Would Remake the DCEU with the final installment, Phase 7. And with Phase 7, this is entitled Revelations. And I'm not going to hold you guys here in the intro any longer. Let's go and jump right into Project 1 of the final phase. The first project of Phase 7 is Justice League Dark, Spirits of the Elements. Final phase begins with seeing our JLD members just living their casual lives. Nothing too crazy going on as we follow John Constantine, Zatanna Zatara, Rack Shade, Raven, Boston Brand, Madame Xanadu, and Kent Nelson. Suddenly, the team gets ambushed by robotic elemental foes. And these will end up being Firebrand, Red Torpedo, Geoquake, and Tornado Tyrant. Constantine and Zatanna will battle the Tornado Tyrants, Raven will battle Geoquake, Rack and Xanadu will battle Red Torpedo, and lastly Kent and Boston will battle Firebrand. The team, after destroying all these androids, then meet and compare notes, and learn that these were possibly designed to house the real elements of elemental spirits, of water, earth, fire, and air. Can you tell I like Avatar? The scene then ends with the team asking the question that if there are these spirits of these elements, then where are they? When we cut to the villains of the movie, Dr. T.O. Morrow and Dr. Anthony Ivo, they are both victims of past escapades of members of the JLD. Morrow's mother was killed by Hecate / the Upside Down Man in Hellblazers, and Ivo's grandfather was victim to the Gray Man back in Dr. Fate. They are fighting over the effectiveness of the elemental androids. Morrow was for them and Ivo was against them. Ivo was taking his time to develop the superior android. Morrow is pissed to find out that 3 of the 4 spirits have gone to find new beings to strengthen. Water went to the new Aquaman, Jackson Hyde. Earth went to Swamp Thing, and fire went to Ronnie Raymond, the body of Firestorm. Going back to the heroes, Xanadu, Shade, and Raven then try to track spiritual energy emanating from the androids and pairing that with process of elimination and logical thinking to come up with the new beings, being Jackson Hyde, Swamp Thing, and Firestorm. This leaves the air spirit, quote, up in the air. The team then not only discovered the new hosts, but they followed their trails back to scientists Ivo and Morrow, and they concluded that since the 3 of the spirits have new bodies, he's likely trying to salvage the air spirit and see them working on a nearly complete android, and one is just started. The next part of this movie would see those 3 new heroes, Jackson Hyde, Swamp Thing, and Firestorm, trying to run away from what was nearly now completed android created by Ivo. That is Amazo. And they are all then brought in by the JLD to help defeat the android that they're going to be fighting in the climax alongside Amazo, the Red Tornado. Amazo wouldn't be defeated though until the climax of the movie, like I said earlier, and along the midsection of the movie, Shade the Changing Man and Madame Xanadu are going to be killed by Amazo. The climax will follow Ivo's death at the hands of Morrow, and then Amazo will be put under control by Morrow. While in the finale, the heroes are having trouble with Amazo, and all hope would seem lost when the new android awakens. Problems arise from Morrow when the Red Tornado doesn't obey his commands and Amazo becomes enraged. The nail in the coffin for Morrow is when Tornado sneak attacks Amazo, which turns the tide in battle, and Amazo is torn to shreds. To shreds, you say. Morrow is sent to prison, where we then learn from Red Tornado why he turned against his creator and gained sentience. His quote-unquote soul came from the air spirit, though in Morrow's haste, his safety protocols were ignored to make sure that he'd be ready for the JLD's attack. The JLD agreed that with the death of Xanadu and Shade, it's best to leave the team behind and focus on their own lives. In the post-credit scenes, a distant memory of Naboo is battling an ancient being during the plagues of Egypt. This ancient being is clad in white and green. Continuing in 2038 is Bat Family Season 4, the Outlaws. Jason Todd has been struggling with a sense of purpose and identity with the rebirth and place within the Bat family. He feels that he cannot work next to Bruce, Tim, Cass, and Damian in Gotham, or Dick Grayson in Bloodhaven, especially since he's becoming a bigger philanthropist. He has been taking odd jobs here and there from various contractors, and his newest is from Roman Sionis, the Black Mask, and he's contracted to steal cargo on a train. While on the train, Jason is shocked to find someone else seemingly doing his contract, Roy Harper. It's also noted that Roy Harper would be dealing with drug issues throughout the entire season of the show. The two would get into a quick spar before having the fight ended by a third party, who appears to almost be Amazonian. This is Artemis, and this would be roughly where episode 1 would end. We would then have flashbacks in the next episode to learn who Artemis is and how the Bonamic doll splintered from the Amazons thousands of years ago and found their way to Egypt. We also learn about the Bow of Ra and that it is what she is looking for and believes to be on the train. By the time we catch up to the present, we close episode 2 by having these three characters find the secret weapon on the train. Bizarro. Over the next few episodes, we learn more about the villains of the season, this of course being Black Mask, who is looking to take over all of organized crime in the country, or possibly even the world, by using a prototype mask that would allow him to control the minds of another. With him only being able to control one mind at a time, Black Mask targets Bizarro as his ultimate prize. The three heroes, Jason, Roy, and Artemis, would feel like they are being forced to work with one another and start to loathe one another. Though Bizarro would choose to stay with the Outlaws, because he and Jason start to feel a connection and Jason sympathizes with Bizarro by comparing their shared experience of waking up drowning or being made to serve a purpose against your nature. The climax of the season begins when the heroes, Red Hood, Artemis, Bizarro, and Arsenal, are taking on Black Mask's mob. By the time they reach Sionis, he is wearing his new mind control mask, and he shows that he has a brute right hand to his business, Solomon Grundy. Sionis starts controlling Bizarro to use him to attack Red Hood, though Artemis jumps in the way and takes the blow, allowing Jason to relocate. Doing this reveals where the Bow of Ra has been and how one gets it. The bow was taken back by Ra and would be bestowed upon a champion worthy of the title of Shimtar. Artemis attempts to take a shot with the bow at Grundy or Sionis, who is appearing to be in pain, synchronized with Bizarro, though she passes out from the strike from Bizarro. Roy then takes up the opportunity to take the Bow of Ra and fires off a shot at Grundy, who has Jason in a death grip. He catches fire while he takes the shots, saving Jason, but at the cost of his own life. Grundy is downed and in the revival process, and then Jason then moves towards Sionis, who is now screaming in pain on the ground as he removes the Black Mask from Sionis' face. Turns out, taking over the mind of a defective clone of Superman and being bombarded with the Kryptonian language in his head was a really bad idea. Sionis is now permanently and effectively brain dead as he is sent off to Arkham Asylum, and Artemis comes to. She, Jason, and Bizarro hold a funeral for Roy Harper, in which the Bat family, aside from Cassandra Cain for a future reasons in a project, Oliver Queen, Dinah Lance, and all the Titans attend. The trio then go their separate ways and move on to the next part of their lives. In the post-credit scenes, Jason is in the Batcave reminiscing about being Robin, and he hears a voice, Bruce's. He rolls in on his wheelchair, and the two have a big heart-to-heart, finishing with Bruce saying these words: "I was 100% confident that you would screw up, Jason. I didn't ask you to be Robin because I wanted somebody perfect. I wanted somebody who could learn from their mistakes and do their best. Someone who makes me a better person just by being with them." Bruce then shares some poorly made cheeseburgers that he had made for himself for the two of them. Closing out 2038 is a miniseries, The New Gods, and this will be taking inspiration from the Mr. Miracle run by Tom King in 2017. And the series would begin with seeing Barda pregnant with her and Scott's first child, as the two are enjoying a quiet, simple life on Earth. Though this would be interrupted by a message by Metron, who is a neutral observer of the New Gods. There are problems within New Genesis, the normally peaceful and benevolent counterpart to Apocalypse, as two forgotten sons of Darkseid are challenging Orion, the current ruler of New Genesis, for rule of the world after the assassination of Highfather Isaiah, Scott's birth father and Orion's adoptive father. Orion and Scott Free were actually traded at birth as a pact/truce between Highfather Isaiah and Darkseid, Orion being Darkseid's birth son and Scott being Highfather Isaiah's birth son, and the counterpart being the adoptive father. The Forgotten Sons are Graven and Calabac, half-brothers who sharing Darkseid for a father who feel betrayed of their birthright for ruling Apocalypse since the planet was destroyed in the Darkseid War, and now they're seeking the throne of New Genesis. They are joined by Kanto, an apocalyptian assassin who is the weapon who killed Highfather Isaiah. The next couple of episodes would have the heroes, mostly Scott and Orion, fight the Forgotten Sons and deal with the New Genesian politics, and who should be the new ruler of New Genesis and how to stop Kraven, Calabac, and Kanto. Orion would also be torn in wanting to help Scott and Barda, as he also wants the throne for himself, though would rather not see Graven or Calabac take over. Barda would also give birth around this time to a baby boy who will be named Jacob, which is just the name that he was given in the Tom King run. I honestly don't know if Jacob has any meaning beyond that. That's just the name that they gave him. And shortly before the climax, Graven would discover that he had inherited Darkseid's Omega Beams and uses them to kill Calabac and sees himself as truly unstoppable now. And he keeps Kanto as his executioner, similar to Hela and Scourge in Thor Ragnarok. The climax of the show would have Barda make a Farron knife, a weapon capable of killing a new god, since New Genesis has no weapons on its surface as an inherently peaceful world. Graven and Kanto would invade New Genesis after a long, grueling fight where Barda, Orion, and Kanto would be knocked out, and Scott would barely kill Graven with the Farron knife, though he would be nearly unconscious as he lays on the ground exhausted, as he sees Kanto then come up looking for the opportunity to take out the rest of the new god royals. He is then stopped by Orion, who trades his life with Kanto as they then kill each other. Scott and Barda would then take the challenge and responsibility to lead New Genesis into a new era, the two of them raised by both New Genesis and Apocalypse, while learning a peaceful life on Earth. Plus, now having Jacob, their son literally born on Earth, two parents from the twin planets of New Genesis and Apocalypse, as their heir to continue the legacy after their eventual passing. This will be the end of Scott Free and Big Barda's story in this fanfiction, as I believe their story is now complete. Open up 2039, Teen Titans Deception. After the fallout of the Darkseid War, Brainiac's invasion of Oa, and the Justice League's mantles being passed down, the Watchtower is left heavily unguarded, leaving it for an all-time easy jailbreak for Vandal Savage. Savage's next move is breaking Deathstroke out of prison, saying something along the lines of, "Now that you're properly motivated to do some work, let's kill some Titans." The Titans would learn that Savage has escaped when Bruce gets a warning from the Watchtower while in the Batcave. Bruce understands the severity of the situation and immediately called Dick and Damian to gather the Titans, whose full lineup will be, as adults, these are the Titans: Nightwing, Starfire, Raven, Beast Boy, Static Shock, Donna Troy, Frost, and Martin Stein's half of Firestorm. And then the teenagers or younger crowd will be Robin, which is Damian Wayne, of course. He'll be 19, pushing 20 by this point. Superboy at the age of 15. Impulse at the age of 16. Jaime Reyes' Blue Beetle at around 19. Ronnie Raymond will be about 18. And Cassandra Cain's Batgirl at about age 18 as well. And then I don't have their ages, but Darla and Eugene from the Marvel family will also be present in this movie in extreme minor roles. They'll be playing, teacher and mostly defense at Titan's Tower. Bruce would provide his notes on the past events in verbal and physical form to the Teen Titans to arm them with as much knowledge of their new foe as possible. The note of the League having help from two exceptional people is also made, and the Titans would love to have their help if these two had lived, of course, being Hawkman and Hawkgirl. Again, this is all referencing Justice League 2, Justice League Eternal, which happened all the way back in Phase 2 of the fanfiction. There was one crucial statement that is in the notes that is quoted from the duo, that is, quote, We are cursed to reincarnate, meet, fall in love, regain our memories, and fight Vandal Savage until the end of time. Or he is finally killed." End quote. The Titans can have their help, though they may not know who they are yet. The next portion of the movie would focus on these Titans, being Donna Troy, Firestorm, Blue Beetle, Impulse, Superboy, Batgirl, Raven, Nightwing, and possibly some others that I don't end up naming later specifically, tracking down who/where the new Hawkman and Hawkgirl are, playing matchmaker, and look to trigger their memories to return. When they find them, they are 16-year-old high school students. All the while, back in Titan's Tower, a new recruit is being trained by Darla, Eugene, Starfire, and extra closely by Beast Boy, a geokinetic named Terra. Of course, with the mention of Terra, all of you know that this is going to be primarily a Judas Contract type story. Continuing with the villains, we learn part of Savage's plan. He plans to power himself further by stealing the abilities of various heroes, and to help him buy time and the powers to steal, he has rehired Deathstroke and lent him a helper, this being of course Terra, to go undercover and kidnap members of the Titans. He targets the Titans specifically because they are less experienced than the Justice League, while still having the full potential of their powers available. It is still unclear at this point how Savage plans to steal their powers. Once Hawkman and Hawkgirl regain their memories after falling in love once again, they sadly don't retain much of their muscle memories since they have entirely new bodies, though they still have their knowledge and memories to provide for the team about Vandal Savage. They slowly start providing hints of potential ways of killing him that they have thought up over the years. Things like throwing him into the sun, dropping him with weights into the Marianas Trench, the Spear of Destiny, which is the spear that pierces the side of Christ in the Bible, which sadly is technically lost to time as now there are multiple spears claiming to be the real one, and not to mention the taboo of using an item such as the spear even if they were to find it. Terra would feel that now is the time to strike. While some of the Titans are out, and Hawkman and Hawkgirl are back, but not at the tower. She, with the help of Deathstroke, incapacitates Titans and kidnap them to bring to Savage's bunker. They get Starfire, Beast Boy, Static Shock, Frost, Darla, and they kill Eugene since they don't need duplicate abilities. They also kidnap Robin, Damian, but not before he sends an SOS outing Terra as a traitor and seeing a glimpse of Deathstroke in the message to Dick Grayson. A fire of hatred builds within Grayson, seeing Deathstroke harming his family once again as him and the remaining Titans devise a plan to kill Deathstroke, including Grayson making a single phone call. It is upon arriving at the bunker that they discover him working for/with Vandal Savage. Also, Damian is kept in a cell since he has no abilities. It is revealed that Savage is using the recently discovered power from Deathstroke's son, Joseph, or Jericho from the comics, who has the ability of possession. Our heroes and villains get into a chaotic battle in this climax underground. Terra uses her abilities to keep Impulse, Hawkman, and Hawkgirl trapped and grounded, leaving other less powered characters for Deathstroke to battle, using Kryptonite for Superboy. Savage tries to attack Superboy with his sword once he's down, but is stopped by another blade, wielded by his daughter, Rose, who Dick called earlier, by the way. Once Savage powers up, the fight turns drastically. The heroes are about to lose with an overpowered, immortal being against them, though it is Savage's greed, lust, and glutton for power that is his own undoing. He targets Terra as his next victim, and in her resistance, the underground bunker starts caving in on the fight. Raven will use this as a chance to talk to Joseph in Savage's mind and helps him to get free of Savage's mental prison, while he is distracted by Rose talking through Savage physically in an attempt for her brother to hear her through him. Once the Kryptonite is crushed by a boulder, Superboy is able to rejoin the fight and helping Donna hold down Vandal Savage. Firestorm then uses their Matrix, suggested by a depowered Frost, to break the powers within him apart. This succeeds in hurting Savage even further than before. Messing with his molecular structure like this frees him for permanent injuries. Joseph at this point is freed from Savage's body/mind. Hawkman and Hawkgirl then beat the ever-loving crap out of Savage's body, and only stop once Dick Grayson urges them to escape the crumbling bunker. As everyone is trying to leave the bunker, Joseph sees his poor excuse of a father trying to escape, and then he possesses Deathstroke, keeping him in the bunker, and urging Rose to escape with the Titans from his father's mouth. Joseph, using his father's body, then holds down Vandal Savage and keeps the Matrix on him as they are all buried in a rocky grave. Our heroes who had just lost their powers are shocked to hear that their abilities are not going to be coming back anytime soon. Ronnie and Dr. Stein would put a theory together that after their powers were stripped from Savage, who had then died with the Firestorm Matrix still attached to him, means that all the heroes' powers were lost with Vandal Savage. Perhaps Starfire may regain her abilities since they came from her biology and being alien, but like Beast Boy, Static, Frost, Darla, since their abilities were either developed, inherited, or came from a non-natural source, it's unlikely they would ever regain their abilities. In the post-credit scenes, we see Raven awaking in the middle of the night, having her empathic powers warn her of an upcoming danger. She sees visions of Black Diamond being broken to 1,000 shards, and the face inside with an eclipse. Continuing on, Birds of Prey. We see shots and flashbacks of a massacre of a family. Everything is hazy and difficult to track as we see many people getting mowed down in their own home. Shortly after, we are then brought to the present and to Batgirl, Cassandra Cain, working a solo patrol with Barbara Gordon, working comms as Oracle. A call comes in over the police scanner that Officer Montoya has reported gunfire and arrow fire from masked villains in Chinatown. Batgirl heads down and is able to catch the tail end of the fight. She gathers as much info as possible from Officer Renee Montoya and sneaks an arrow off the crime scene. The arrow was too short for a normal bow, so it was likely a crossbow arrow. Cassandra, with the help of Babs, tracks down one of the parties from the fight moving towards Starling City. While in Starling City, Cass receives work of a break-in at a local police captain's house. Rushing to the address, Cass spots a masked female in black and dark purple with 2 small crossbows attached to the thighs. Cass engages the vigilante in battle and the two fight for some time. The mysterious criminal attempting to run away, though not fast enough for Batgirl, who stays right on her heels. Shortly after the mysterious woman tries to escape, a loud wail comes on both of the combatants. In comes Black Canary, putting a firm stop to the fight and interrogates both the vigilantes. The mysterious woman identifies herself as Huntress, or Helena Bertinelli, and that these two are only getting in her way of her mission. That she isn't doing everything without a clear purpose, a personal vendetta to kill the monsters responsible for the death of her family. Dinah shares her identity as the Black Canary, working commonly with the Green Arrow, keeping Oliver's identity secret for the time being. Cass then shares her identity, but only because Dinah had demasked her during the interrogations. She still refuses for the two of them to be able to meet in the Batcave, as that is for Justice League members and those who are working with the Batman specifically. This will be followed up by a quick quip by Dinah about the Batman being too young and should still be Robin. Cass would literally slap sense into her and stand up for her Bat family members' honor in this moment. After sharing the information she had received/stolen from the police captain's house, which were reports of her family's massacre, an image is taken of a woman in a cat's mask. That's the Lynx, Cass would share with the group. She's been seen working in the Penguin in Gotham, newcomer to the city like me. Helena would then believe that it must have been the Penguin's men who had murdered her family all those years ago in the massacre. The next portion of the movie would see the trio return to Gotham and sneak into the Iceberg Lounge. They are waiting outside the Penguin's office when they hear word of him waiting on news from his new hired hand. After the three feels as if they've heard enough, they fly into the Penguin's office and the four birds begin their song. Cass keeping to the ceiling, though, as hidden cover while Huntress and Dinah do most of the talking. The Penguin, of course, is bluffing throughout the entire scene about knowing anything about this mysterious Lynx and claims to be as much of a victim as Huntress is. Huntress notices a suspicious figure outside the grand window behind the Penguin's desk and pulls the crossbow on the Penguin's head. Instantly, not only do Penguin's guards break in and the massive window shatters, and revealed on the desk is the Lynx, armed with throwing knives, twin katanas, among other blades. Dinah keeps most of the Penguin's guard away with her canary cry. Huntress fights the Lynx, and Cass looks to keep the Penguin from retreating into his safe room while keeping the room under a cloud of smoke. The fight ends with the Lynx escaping while giving each of the heroes plenty of cuts. Penguin's guards are incapacitated, and the Penguin is captured and honestly now interrogated. Helena would be shocked to learn that although the Lynx was working for the Penguin, that he was not behind the family's murder. He would have remembered the incident on the news. He was in a mob war against the Falcons when it was stopped by Batman. Babs would happily come in on the comms to Cass. Lies! That was me and Jason! Damn him! Cass would relay the truth from her comms. You mean Batgirl and Robin. Batman was out of town, conveniently. This is actually referencing the Batgirl and Robin miniseries from the very beginning of Phase 2. Penguin would be visibly frustrated with the Cassandra after her correction. The real target you want is King Snake. Penguin outs, and he wouldn't know much more than that. Only that he was based in China and has numbers in Europe, mostly Italy. Though this is all he knew. While he did give up someone who may know more who died years ago. The Joker. Perhaps Mr. J shared some info with one who called him Puddin'. Their research then, of course, would take them to Arkham, where they tried to meet with Dr. Harleen Quinzel, as she has been going by since the death of the Joker by Superman during Darkseid's war. She has genuinely tried to reform serving her sentence at Arkham Asylum while also providing the therapists and doctors with her services, exchanging her time/work for a more pleasant stay. They ask her for any info on King Snake. At the mention of the name, Harley faintly shows signs of her old insanity before gathering herself. Yes, Joker and I used to know of him. She would then share that he did have the order to kill the Bertinelli family all those years ago. He was expanding his reach and they wouldn't be bought, so they were taken out. I'm sorry for what it's worth for me, Harley would apologize through a tear in her eye. He's in Gotham, the King Snake, Babs would call to the team. Cass would then extend an offer to Harley. Would you like to have a moment of closure? Help us, and that may further reduce your sentence. Harley would again start giggling, though would try to restrain herself. I would fall into a slippery slope if I lose my chance at an emotional and mental sobriety from that part of my life. Every fiber of my being wants to, but I'm off the meds for the first time, and I want to put this life behind me. The trio would leave and thank Harleen for her help before beginning the climax against King Snake and the Lynx. Turns out King Snake is blind, though far from a slack of a fighter. The five would fight on the streets of Gotham for a portion of the fight, then move on to a nearby rooftop. Lynx is defeated when she is incapacitated and rendered unconscious by Black Canary's Canary Cry, though shortly after Dinah's throat is then stunted by King Snake as she would try to wind up another cry, this muting her. As he did this, Helena shoots arrows into King Snake's spine, causing him to keel over onto the ground. Out of arrows, she picks up Batgirl's grappling gun and points it at his forehead, and with the words of mercy in her ears, spares her family's murderer's life. Though, as Helena nears the edge, King Snake lunges at her. She leaps off, grapples to a nearby wall, leaving the mob boss to fall to his death, with her still hanging on the nearby wall. The team the next morning would send Lynx to prison for her crimes and keep an eye on the power vacuum that would be left behind after King Snake's death. It's inevitable, but someone would eventually take that spot. The three exchange their love and Cass invites them back to the Batcave, where they're able to meet their virtual eyes in the sky, Barbara Gordon. The original Batgirl, now Oracle, and she shares her tales of working with the Batman and the then Robin, now Red Hood, until she was paralyzed by the Joker. The heroes enjoy each other's company and are welcomed in the Batcave for any needs that may come of them at any time. In the post-credit scenes, Batman would meet Harley in Arkham Asylum. She would tell the new young hero and her old nemesis's cowl to please leave her alone in her recovery, as one Batman was enough for one lifetime. Batman, again this is Tim we're talking here, would then oblige, leaving the room silently after she then turns and bumps into a familiar foe once again. Batman as she remembers him. Matsy? She would involuntarily chuckle before catching herself. What else did you know of King Snake? Batgirl told me you helped her. There was more, wasn't there? Yes, Harleen would reply. Batsy, he was the father of Bane. I'm sorry for the news. I give it out of retroactive respect for the work that you did, not only for Gotham, but for the world. Batman, and again, now this is Bruce, would visibly tense at the mention of the man who broke him. Thank you, Harleen. I'm glad we can be peaceful in this new life. Always believed in you from the beginning. Hope your recovery continues well. And I want to make it noted here that Bruce is wearing a prototype prosthesis on his lower body, similar to what Rhodey wears in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that allows him to stand and walk, but it's nowhere near enough for him to properly return to crime fighting. So he's like in the full bat suit. He's probably not filling it out like he used to. He's probably, lost a lot of muscle, but he is in the bat suit. He is walking enough and is able to stand for short periods of time with this prosthesis. Closing out our penultimate year of the fanfiction, part 1 of the finale, Justice League Damnation. We see reports of increased violence as Batman Tim Drake, and Robin, Damian Wayne, are fighting criminals across Gotham City. After one of these relatively unusual cases, a man who was beating up an innocent victim suddenly gasps in horror in the actions that he had taken and begs forgiveness from the victim and from Batman and Robin. Batman notices a crystal in the man's pocket and confiscates it for investigation. Back at the Batcave, Tim and Damian are joined by Cassandra Cain's Batgirl, Dick Grayson's Nightwing, Jason Todd's Red Hood, Barbara Gordon's Oracle, and of course, Bruce Wayne. Tim starts shaking his head almost as if shaking away at disturbing thoughts. And after members of the Bat family ask if anything is wrong, Tim uncharacteristically attacks Bruce. Stepping in just in time to stop the attack is Jason, who takes the beating, killing him. As the light leaves Jason's eyes, Tim comes to in a shock of his actions and throws the crystal away from him and passes out from the shock. Here is where we would get the title card for Justice League Damnation. An emergency meeting is called by all members of the Justice League and its affiliated teams to the Watchtower on what is to be done with Tim Drake after his actions against Jason and Bruce. Tim is later asked how or why he would even have done this, and solemnly he responds that he can only guess it was from the crystal that he had pulled off that Gotham citizen just earlier that evening. Kent Nelson, Dr. Fate, then inspects the crystal from a distance, and Artemis and Bizarro look on with each other in silence at the corpse of their friend and team leader for the first time. Martian Manhunter then alerts the team to news on the reports of a humanoid creature causing massive amounts of devastation. As much as Tim's actions need consequences, those may need to wait until the new threat is dealt with. The League sends a group of themselves to deal with this new threat, and the rest stay in the Watchtower. This team is Green Arrow, Black Canary, John Stewart's Green Lantern, Wally West's Flash, Jackson Hyde's Aquaman, Raven, Dr. Fate, Zatanna Zatara, and Donna Troy. They try to deal with this being. It is a humanoid male who has red skin and eyes with a fire to them no well-minded individual would have. When the humanoid turns and looks at Fate, he seems to almost recognize him and springs onto the team of heroes. Kent Nelson is suddenly bombarded with visions of a past avatar of Naboo doing battle with this being clad in green and white, when this being in red now utters, "Ah, remember them, aren't you? Our past. Tell me where the new one is." The remaining heroes begin to retreat after they realize they do nearly no damage to this being. And during the retreat, the red villain throws similar shards of the crystal that Tim had found earlier at specifically Oliver, Dinah, John, Wally, Jackson, and Donna. Back in the Watchtower, Dr. Fate, more specifically the actual spirit of Naboo, relays who that was and who he was referring to. The being himself was called Asmodeus, and he was referring to the spirit of vengeance, the Spectre, though this was during the days of ancient Egypt, specifically during the plagues of Egypt when this was all happening in the visions. Ronnie Raymond would reply, like, the 40 days of darkness, water becoming blood, locusts, all of that was him? The answer to Ronnie's questions, oddly, was both yes and no. The human who then became Asmodeus was behind those events, but as the Spectre himself is a metaphysical representation of vengeance, so he, in a lot of ways, is judge, jury, and in the wrong hands, executioner if needs be. Though, the spirit of the Spectre needs a host to enact its will. Bruce asks Naboo if he knows anything about the crystals. Naboo replies uncertain, but from what he knows, they come from a being even more ancient than himself, Eclipso. There are ancient stories long forgotten that mention a crystal that held Eclipso prisoner. Eclipso was the embodiment of God's wrath before he was then replaced by the Spectre, as he was too violent. As for Asmodeus, he is simply a human bound to a demon from hell, literally. Throughout the next section of this movie, we see Oliver, Dinah, John, Wally, Jackson, and Donna start acting more like Tim did as they stay in contact with their crystals unknowingly. The hero's new goal, stop Asmodeus from his rampage on Earth and learn whatever they can about this Spectre and find out what they can about these crystals. We will also be close to the climax of the movie when the Spectre is revealed and he and Asmodeus' battle begins. The battle will mostly be Spectre versus Asmodeus versus the Justice League, so 3 parties / 3 sides. This battle is concluded when the Spectre downs Asmodeus for good. Alive, but down. Asmodeus had also hurt Spectre enough to the point where the spirit actually disappears, leaving a human body behind unconscious before Asmodeus hits the ground. But it is far from a happy ending. Many of the heroes had finished the battles writhing on the ground in horrible pain, and they are suddenly all calmed simultaneously. They stand up, revealing their eyes had gone dark with purple irises, and parts of their faces actually had the shape of an eclipse on them. Of course, these being Oliver, Dinah, Jon Stewart, Wally West, Jackson Hyde, and Donna Troy. Wally then runs to Tim and forces a crystal on him, and then suddenly has the same pain, eyes, and eclipse on his face. Supergirl, Superboy, Martian Manhunter, Impulse, and Dr. Fate did all their best work to gather as many of the remaining heroes as they could before they were all put under whatever control this was. They were all able to save everybody, including the body left behind by the Spectre, aside from Cassandra Cain, Jessica Cruz, Helena Bertinelli, Jaime Reyes, and Freddie Freeman's Shazam. All of them are now under this control. As all of the corrupted heroes examine each other and look upon the body of Asmodeus, they walk up to the villain, heaving breaths and in and out, and as his tone shifts. No, what about me? I thought we were both getting our revenge on him. The corrupted respond, unified, as if speaking with a single voice. You thought wrong. Then they all attack the maimed villain as the screen cuts to black. In the post-credit scenes, we see a town swiftly becoming corrupted by the crystals and the citizens gaining the eclipsed possession when we see a temporal portal that we've seen before. This is Rip Hunter's time machine that was last seen being used by Booster Gold. To open up the final year of the fanfiction, Booster Gold's mini-series. And this will sort of be a part 2, not really, of the finale. It is going to help fill in where Booster Gold has been throughout this finale. And it's going to also serve as a sort of recap episode, if you will, across this entire 27-year fanfiction. We would see Booster Gold going throughout events in history of the DCEU. Booster is now working with Rip Hunter, who is secretly Booster's son, to stop Black Beetle, who is trying to change events from the past. Booster's goal is to keep the status quo and prevent changes to the timeline. So this will actually be very similar to like What If in the MCU and Loki with like the whole sacred timeline thing, where Booster in this show, in this miniseries, his entire goal is to keep what happens in the past happening. Black Beetle will have himself and many of his minions and partners trying to affect things that happened in the past. But it's Booster's job to make sure things happen the way they're supposed to. The story climaxes with Booster and company saving Ted Kord from the villains of the show so they can bring him back to Jenny in the timeline. Rip Hunter is initially hesitant to allow Booster to save Ted, though he is convinced to help him once he sees Jenny's pain and sympathetically allows the rescue mission, which is then where he reveals to Booster that he, Rip Hunter, is Booster's son. He was initially taken by them for initiation when Jenny was a child, when he went missing all those years ago. But when he refused to join them, they kept him locked up in their lair until he changed his mind. Booster finds this out during the end of an episode, allowing for a 2 to 3 part episode finale. During the majority of the show, he is the greatest hero you've never heard of because he is going to all these different points in the timeline of the fanfiction, but he cannot stay too long or has to stay so covert, so he doesn't get any praise and actually keeps everything secretly moving the way it should. So each episode would be like a different point in the universe where something might have happened a little too conveniently. So a short list of examples of what I have would be things like getting Hawkman and Hawkgirl to the museum where Batman, Superman, and the Flash would find them in Justice League Eternal, helping setting up Carol Ferris to meet Hal Jordan in the bar in Green Lantern Rage, helps reveal Amanda Waller to be a White Lantern in Suicide Squad 2. When Zatanna and Constantine during the Hellblazer movie are split up, he talks to Constantine and tries to motivate him to be better for Zatanna while he is drunk in a pub. He helps Victor Stone's Cyborg with moving on from an abusive father. They have similar backstories with bad fathers and being on the football stars for the Gotham City University. He helps Billy Batson and the Marvel family honor Mary after her death to Black Adam, since he lost his sister who was always looking out for him. And then also maybe he tips off Starfire in events that are happening in Bloodhaven so she'd run into Dick Grayson to rejoin the Titans. And of course the climax being saving Ted Kord's Blue Beetle from the Time Stealers and bringing him back to the main timeline. The post-credits would be Ted Kord is brought back to that correct temporal zip code, as I've mentioned earlier. And this is with Booster Gold, which is the present day, and we see Asmodeus on the news battling the heroes and reports of people and heroes acting uncharacteristically evil. And to close the fanfiction, the final project, Justice League revelations. The Justice League had retreated to an old reliable safe house, Bruce Wayne's lake house, site of their final duel with Darkseid many years ago. The League is licking their wounds and brainstorming a plan of action after many of their members were seemingly possessed by mystical crystals. Mystical crystals. The members present are Supergirl, Superboy, Raven, Guy Gardner, and Kyle Rayner and Simon Baz's Green Lanterns, Starfire, Nightwing, Damian Wayne, Red Tornado, Deadman, Bizarro, Artemis, Martian Manhunter, Dr. Fate, Constantine, Zatanna, Impulse, Firestorm, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, and Bruce Wayne. The last individual here is a mystery left behind by the Spectre, a middle-aged man who is unconscious at the start of this scene, but wakes up towards the end. We pick back up then with Booster Gold and Ted Kord after they have come back to the present and are trying to figure out what the hell is going on. There is a newscast that is running over the events of the last movie and telling people to stay indoors and away from anyone with an eclipse on their face, and to avoid these black crystals. All the while, the anchor is then jumped and transformed into a minion of Eclipso in front of the camera for Booster and Ted to see. Alright, what should we do, Mr. Obsessed with Superheroes from my generation? Ted would jest and Booster would aptly respond, safe house. They have to have some safe houses. We'd have to try them all. There's no knowing which one they'd be at. Back at the lake house, the League would question this mysterious man, starting off with basic questions. Who are you, and what do you know of the Spectre? Where did the Spectre go, and so on. I am Jim Corrigan. I was a police officer in Gotham City before I was murdered by the mob. Bruce Wayne accuses the man of lying. Not only was he alive right now, but no officer in Gotham had been killed by the mob specifically since he had started his patrols as Batman nearly 40 years ago. For those who don't know, my timeline for Batman is that this movie takes place in 2040 or 2039, in that realm. And Batman would have started like in 2005. So nearly 40 years. I was a cop in the 1940s. Put me in a barrel of cement and dropped me off in the harbor. My soul was granted to return to Earth, but under the condition that I serve as the spirit of vengeance. The Spectre. Honestly, still wondering if it was worth it. As Corrigan finishes his tale, Booster and Ted fall through the ceiling trying to be stealthy, and they are immediately grabbed by Superboy and Supergirl and examined and interrogated for what they may know. Constantine recognizes Booster as the man many years ago who helped me pull my head out of my ass and started working with Zatanna again. Referencing, again, Hellblazers in Phase 3. Starfire, although still redeveloping her powers after Vandal Savage's attack, also chimes in and says that he helped her find Dick Grayson and then helped reform the Titans. Deadman possesses him to see what he can figure out about him, and Jean, Martian Manhunter, also reads his mind, relaying to the group that he has also helped out everyone so many ways where they should never have succeeded otherwise. They ask the two their names, and they respond, my name's Ted Kord, or Blue Beetle, and I'm Michael Carter, or Booster Gold. Zatanna would put perfectly, Booster Gold, you are the greatest hero that we have never heard of. There is also an explanation for how Ted and Jaime are both Blue Beetles, but different at the same time. Corrigan then returns to his story that he doesn't know how to reconnect with the Spectre, and frankly, isn't too motivated to want to start anytime soon. He is then shocked to see an ethereal individual, a spooky someone, a phantom stranger, perhaps, come into the lake house. Now you've all done it, he shouts. The phantom stranger, whose members of the JLD have already become acquainted with, introduces himself unsatisfyingly. He then gives a history lesson on the Spectre, Asmodeus, and finally Eclipso, going all the way back to the Old and New Testaments with accuracy that seems like first-hand eyewitness testimony. Reminder, Phantom Stranger in the comics has many options for his backstory, all of them simultaneously existing and not existing. It's confusing. One of these I have chosen to be canon for my fanfiction. This is that the Phantom Stranger is Judas from Christianity and the betrayal of Christ. He is serving 1,000 years as the Phantom Stranger for each piece of silver that he had sold to Jesus to repent for his sins. Eclipso is who you're really battling here. The Spectre would actually be of great help in your quest, the Stranger says while looking straight at Corrigan. The Phantom Stranger tells them something they had already guessed on at this point. The crystals are Eclipso's prison. Once the pieces are brought to one place, Eclipso will reform and be nigh unbeatable. There are two ways that he could be defeated. Since he is an ancient being and is very difficult to defeat, if he can be killed, there are the crystals themselves. They, reassembled, are the Heart of Darkness. the prison where he had been kept for millennia. Broken by Asmodeus, who was promised power alongside Eclipso, the pieces will slowly possess the wielder to then serve Eclipso. And once they are close enough to one another, Eclipso will return to his physical form. They would need to reassemble the heart from the crystals that none of them would be able to touch without then turning into his minions. But it would work if the Heart of Darkness was reformed, or they could find the Spear of Destiny, or Holy Lance, the spear that had pierced the side of Christ during his crucifixion. The stranger would also have a notable shake in his voice at the mention of Christ. The climax of the movie would come after more scenes of the League having run-ins with Eclipso's puppets, which sadly results in Hawkman and Hawkgirl becoming possessed. The Spear of Destiny turns out to be the one in Vienna. Again, in the real theology, or in real life, there's 3 spears that are in museums throughout the world that are claimed to be the Spear of Destiny. This is real life stuff, not fan fiction, not comics. This is real life stuff. The one that I have chosen for the sake of this fan fiction to be the authentic Spear of Destiny is the one that is located in Vienna in the Imperial Treasury of Hofburg Palace. That is the one that I have chosen for the real Spear of Destiny in this fan fiction, because it is, number one, the most notable. It seems to be the most complete when I looked at pictures of it. And it is actually the same spear that is used as inspiration for the Legends of Tomorrow show, as well as the Constantine movie in 2005 with Keanu Reeves. So I figured it'd be the most entertaining of the choices that are out there in the real world. During the climax, which takes place at that Imperial Treasury at Hofburg Palace in Vienna, the villains and heroes trade wins and losses. The first win of the heroes is Jim Corrigan regains the spirit of the Spectre. The villains win when the pieces of the heart are brought close enough together to reform Eclipso physically. The spear is then buried in the rubble of the museum. However, Eclipso then loses all of his acolytes when the team effort of Impulse, Raven, Guy Gardner, Simon Baz, Green Lanterns, with Impulse shepherding the corrupted into Simon and Guy's grip. Raven then uses her empathic abilities, amplified by John Constantine and Zatanna Zatara, to break the possession on the corrupted heroes. However, this kills Raven, as her empathic abilities are the backbone of this spell. The load was just too great. In a fit of rage, Eclipso kills one of his old acolytes, John Stewart. Eclipso then looks to take over a new host, one for him to personally inhabit, the Spectre himself. As the Spectre is attempting to gather the shards of the Heart of Darkness and reform Eclipso's prison, the vengeful spirit possesses the replacement Spirit of Vengeance. While now a being without any individual rival, Eclipso picks up Bizarro and rips him in half. Red Tornado amplifies his abilities to slow down Eclipso when the vortexes uncover the Spear of Destiny. The staff is then taken up by the nearest to it, Damian Wayne's Robin. Robin then heroically takes up the spear and looks to stab Eclipso in the chest. Damian is violently knocked away into a nearby wall after sticking the spear into Eclipso's chest. Martian Manhunter then uses his telepathy to go into Eclipso and the Spectre's shared mind. While inside, he notices Eclipso and the Spectre battling with a dead Jim Corrigan off to the side. The 3 continue fighting in the mentally fabricated realm, and we, the audience, flash back to the fight in the real world. We see the spear being taken up by a new hand. Dr. Fate takes the spear and drives it directly into Eclipso and Spectre's heart. We see the green lights coming from every pore of the Spirit of Vengeances when they are then placed into the corpse of ordinary Jim Corrigan. While back in the mental battle between Spectre, Eclipso, and Martian Manhunter, Eclipso had successfully choked out the mind of Jean when we see the spear pierce his heart further, confirming the death of the hateful spirit. The remaining heroes, in shock, review their final battlefield, gathering what there is to do next. They look upon the field of dead bodies: John Stewart, Raven, Jim Corrigan, Bizarro, Jean Jones. When they find Damian still lying on the ground, alive, but barely. Tim is the first to run to Damian as fast as his wounded body would allow, followed closely by Bat family members Cassandra Cain and Dick Grayson. "Looks like we won, Tim," Damian would say, spitting up blood, calling Tim by his first name, something he has never done for anyone, either referring to them by their relation to him or their surnames. "It's a brave move you made, you little asshole," Dick retorts. "Just wanted to be like my older brothers. You taught me well." Cassandra then asks if there's anything that could be done. Oliver replies, "Sadly, no. The world being overrun by Eclipso's madness, it wouldn't be for quite a while until hospitals and other emergency services are honestly up and running again. At least we could say goodbye." She then turns back to Damian with tears in her eyes, and she takes one of his hands, which Damian finds his other hand to hers, and with the final words to everyone around him, he simply ushers, "I love you." And lost is the light behind young Robin's eyes. 10 days later. The world is healing from the attack from Eclipso. With many of our heroes gone, the importance of family and love has never been greater. The best parts of humanity are seen amongst the funerals for the fallen. Public memorials for the heroes are erected in respectively appropriate locations, and the Leagues holds private funerals for their fallen friends. Damian Wayne, Raven, Jason Todd, Bizarro, Sean Jones, and Jon Stewart. Although many faces are lost to the moment, they will be remembered not because we'll never see them again, but because they were seen at all. And so here is why the fanfiction is stopping. Here's a few reasons of why I'm stopping it here, other than I said so. Number one, James Gunn's Superman is releasing soon, and since this is a DCEU focused fanfiction, the future of the DCU is just beginning. I wanted to let this fanfiction be and look forward to the future content put out by Warner Brothers and DC Studios. As much as I love a lot of aspects of the DCEU, I am very optimistic in what James Gunn has been cooking up with Peter Safran and everybody else over at DC Studios. So I'm super excited to look forward to the future and let go of this past with the DCEU. Number two, the fanfiction's next project would be at the earliest, hypothetically, 2042, allowing for 1 year after Justice League Revelations to let Saga 2 settle, similar to what I did with Saga 1 to Saga 2 after Justice League Omega going into The Better Tomorrow. This would then be 29 years after the release of the first film, Superman Man of Steel, back in 2013. For reference / context, 29 years ago from right now, which again, I'm recording this in June of 2025, is 1996. In real life, Blade wouldn't release for another 2 years. And the newest, I would say relevant, for lack of better words, superhero movie that was released was Batman Forever with Val Kilmer, Tommy Lee Jones, and Jim Carrey. It would be more than okay at this point for a reboot of a cinematic universe, in my personal opinion. I mean, think about it. It's 29 years from the release of Richard Donner's Superman in 1978 to 2007 with the release of Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, and being 1 year removed from Iron Man. It's almost as far away from what my next project would be from my first project as it is from Iron Man, the start of the MCU, from the first modern superhero movie. At that distance is almost identical. I think we're more than due for, another Clark Kent Superman movie or a Bruce Wayne Batman movie, because by this point, I think audiences would be more than happy with a reboot. And then in terms of how I ended the fanfiction, I wanted to end it on a note that wasn't 100% happy, though not nearly like how the universe ends in Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. I didn't want to go that somber. I wanted to shoot for somewhere in between. Although I don't plan to make Saga 3 or Phase 8s or anything in that future, if I did want to follow through and continue working on this like a crazed madman, here are a few things that I would consider doing. If in this list an idea or question that is left unanswered about my universe that you want to have answered, please comment that down below. I will be regularly checking in on the comments on this video as best I can for the foreseeable future, and I will keep a pinned comments on this video that'll be updated periodically with mine and your ideas for the future of this fanfiction, possibly. So, in no particular order, I would have Tim Drake retire as Batman shortly after the events of this Saga 2 because of his actions, and he would leave the world of vigilante crime fighting for good. Bruce Wayne, after years of physical therapy and recovery, would try to have his Dark Knight return, though this would ultimately fail. He would then find and recruit a young Terry McGinnis to be the next Batman Beyond. Terry would be introduced similar to how Carrie Kelly was used in the Dark Knight Returns graphic novel, and while Bruce is failing in his attempts to return, Terry would then be the X factor in dealing with the villain of that movie, and becoming that next Batman for the foreseeable future. With the Titans mostly being disbanded, the young Teen Titans would grow up into their new versions of their adult mantles. So, for example, John Kent would become the next Superman, working alongside his first cousin once removed, Supergirl. And Bart Allen would eventually graduate from being Impulse, or continue to be Impulse, but be an adult Flash next to his Uncle Wally. I would also look to introduce the Blue Lanterns of Hope and Indigo Triumphs of Compassion on another Lantern-focused project, and some other characters that I didn't use in either one of these two sagas that I would have loved to use, just never got around to it, would be characters like Plastic Man, Mr. Terrific, Larfleeze, Godspeed, Sideways, Damage, again, Saint Walker and the Blue Lanterns, as well as the Indigo Tribes of Compassion. Brother Eye would be really fun to do, or Starro the Conqueror. And then one idea I had while just kind of coming up with ideas for this epilogue, if you will, would be perhaps the Saga 3 finale would be similar to the Kingdom Come story, where many newly introduced heroes would lack respect for the heroes in Sagas 1 and 2, and trash their names, becoming the next major villains, and the movies would then focus on educating these young heroes on the sacrifices that the heroes that came before, and where the legacies left behind, and repairing those legacies, and leaving the world better off than it was found. You know, like I said, I wanted to come up with parts of a follow-through, or really come up with a follow-through for the saga, so that way it ends on a note that I am happy with, and there is, you know, a bit of direction afterwards. If there is an idea that you have or a question you have about my universe and how it would continue, please leave it in the comments below. Would love to continue chatting about this, and then depending on our conversations, or depending on ideas or you guys' comments, we will keep that pinned comment updated so you guys can always check that out. And thank you all so much for watching this video. I have been pouring my heart and soul into this fan fiction for the last 5-6 years plus, and so I'm very happy to close it here, and thank all of you again so much for watching this series. Like I said earlier, I think it'd be really, really fun to go dive into some old drafts in a future video. If you guys are interested in that, again, please comment down below. Other than that, I'm really happy to set this aside and look on to the future of DC content with things like Superman and everything else James Gunn has been cooking up. Simply put, thank you so much again for everybody for watching this series. And if you did make it to the end of this video, you likely watched all the other ones. So you probably like my content, so I do urge you to press that subscribe button, because then you'll be notified of all of my videos whenever they go up. And also, just have a great rest of your day. Thank you.